This video is sponsored by Delete Me. September 15th, 1980. Grand Forks Air Base in North Dakota. Around 9 p.m., a 6-man crew is carrying out routine engine checks on a massive B-52H Stratofortress bomber, making sure it's ready to take off, just in case the Cold War turns hot. As usual, the first 4 engines roar to life with no issues. But as they initiate the start sequence for the number 5 engine, they hear the blood-curdling pop of an engine malfunction. Black smoke billows into the air. Flames erupt from the wing, fed by fuel pouring from the aircraft's wing tank. The fire grows with terrifying speed, a visceral orange blaze visible for miles around. As alarm klaxons blare across the base, Air Force personnel exchange intense glances, the color drained from their faces. The B-52H carries 12 nuclear weapons with a combined total potential yield of 7.4 megatons, nearly 500 times the power of the attack on Hiroshima. And now they're sitting inside a burning aircraft in the American Midwest. Even the smallest spark can ignite a devastating fire, as the crew aboard the B-52 at Grand Forks Air Base was about to discover. Just like that terrifying blaze, small oversights online can ignite serious risks to your privacy. Every day, data brokers quietly gather and sell your personal information, including your home address, phone number, relatives' details, and online activities, exposing you to identity theft, phishing scams, and even targeted harassment. That's why here at Dark Footage, we personally trust our sponsor, Delete Me, to guard our privacy online. Delete Me's dedicated privacy experts track down your sensitive information across hundreds of data broker sites and proactively remove it year-round. When we first activated our accounts, the Delete Me privacy report showed dozens of places our data had appeared online without us realizing it, and their team promptly eliminated that exposure. But Delete Me doesn't just perform a one-time cleanup. They continuously monitor your data, keeping it off those broken sites and protecting your privacy consistently. Plus, since data brokers often link your information to your relatives, Delete Me offers family plans to ensure your entire household remains secure. Take control before it's too late. Visit joindeleteme.com/darkfootage and use promo code DARKFOOTAGE for 20% off your subscription. Protect your privacy today, because like handling nuclear-armed bombers, your personal information deserves absolute security. The incident unfolds. There was no doubt about the enormous risk posed by the bombs carried within the aircraft's fuselage. 8 nuclear-tipped AGM-69A short-range attack missiles, or SRAMs, and 4 B-28 nuclear gravity bombs, representing enough destructive power to devastate not just a single city, but entire regions. As the flames intensified, panic spread rapidly throughout the base. One security policeman, whose identity remains protected in the records of the Department of Veterans Affairs, reported that frightened crews of KC-135 tanker aircraft stationed nearby the burning B-52H began sprinting toward the containment fence, preferring to climb through the razor wire in their attempt to escape rather than face certain doom in the imminent explosion. However, by abandoning their fuel-laden tanker aircraft so close to the fire, they were potentially allowing the already dire situation to become much worse. The security policemen claimed that they were instructed to pull the terrified KC-135 pilots off the fence and force them back to their cockpits in order to move the aircraft as far away as possible from the B-52H, and if they refused, to shoot them on the spot. Other personnel were hurriedly evacuated from within a half-mile radius of the burning aircraft, though given the potential size of the explosion, this would almost certainly not be far enough. Before long, fire trucks arrived on the scene, their blaring sirens cutting through the night air as they sped toward the growing inferno. Yet the firefighters would have their work cut out for them. Maintenance personnel had failed to correctly reassemble a fuel strainer in the bomber's fuel system. Thanks to this seemingly minor error, additional fuel was flowing directly into the engine, creating an intensely hot fire that would be exceptionally difficult to extinguish. The fully loaded wing tanks continued to feed the growing blaze, turning the bomber into what one witness described as a blowtorch against the night sky. As word of the burning B-52 reached Grand Forks Mayor H.C. Bud Westman, he faced an impossible decision with virtually no information. Air Force policy strictly prohibited officials from confirming whether nuclear weapons were on board the aircraft, yet the mayor needed to determine whether to evacuate the city, activate emergency broadcast systems, or hope the situation would resolve itself before taking drastic measures. After the Air Force reassured him that there was no danger of a major accident, he chose the second option, later explaining, quote, "Sometimes you've got to operate on faith in what people tell you." Little did Westman know that the situation was considerably more serious than the Air Force was prepared to admit. The stakes. A full hour since the fire had begun, the atmosphere was growing more desperate by the minute. As the fuel continued to feed the flames, the heat became so intense that it threatened to compromise the aircraft's structure. Unknown to most present, the SRAMs had a particularly dangerous flaw. They'd been built with relatively loose safety requirements and lacked the fire and explosion-resistant features that had become standard in other nuclear weapons. If the fire reached the bomb bay, the rocket motors in the SRAMs would likely explode, along with the conventional explosives inside their W-69 warheads. While this might not have triggered a full thermonuclear detonation, it would undoubtedly be catastrophic in its own right. A plume of highly radioactive plutonium would be thrown into the air, covering approximately 60 square miles across North Dakota and Minnesota, and exposing as many as 75,000 people living within 20 miles of Grand Forks to lethal doses of radiation. Dr. Roger Batzel, former director of the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, later explained, quote, "You're talking about something that in one respect could probably be worse than Chernobyl." Indeed, the plutonium contamination caused by such an event would poison the soil for 24,000 years, potentially requiring an exclusion zone similar to the one that still surrounds Chernobyl today. The B-28 bombs presented an additional danger. According to nuclear weapons expert Stephen Schwartz, quote, "A design flaw in the B-28 bomb meant that if exposed to prolonged heat, two wires too close to the casing could short-circuit, arm the bomb, trigger an accidental detonation of the high explosives surrounding the core, and set off a nuclear explosion." Such a detonation would be cataclysmic. A single 1.45 megaton explosion could create a fireball touching everything within a mile radius, with thermal radiation causing severe injuries to anyone within 16 miles. It could claim more than 60,000 lives instantly or within days, with countless more suffering long-term illnesses from radiation exposure. The battle against time. Before long, the crisis had entered its third hour. With the flames showing no signs of diminishing, the scene had become almost apocalyptic. A massive cone of fire, visible from miles around, the orange glow reflecting off the clouds above the base. The low-frequency roar of the burning fuel seemed to vibrate through the ground itself. For the personnel on the ground, the operation had become a war of attrition. Water and foam seemed to have minimal effect on the fuel-fed inferno. The protective gear of the exhausted firefighters offered little comfort against the intense heat radiating from the burning aircraft. The crews rotated to prevent heat exhaustion, but resources were stretching thin. 3 firefighters had already suffered minor injuries, while another and one member of the bomber's crew had been hospitalized for smoke inhalation. Fortunately, Mother Nature seemed to be playing her part. A steady 26-mile-per-hour wind was blowing the intense flames away from the bomber's fuselage, where the nuclear weapons were stored. Nonetheless, it remained a highly precarious situation. Even a slight change in wind direction could drive the flames toward the bomb bay, and potentially ignite the conventional explosives in the weapon's triggering mechanisms. Base meteorologists nervously monitored weather conditions. Finally, after 3 hours of burning continuously, the No. 3 wing tank's fuel supply ran out. With no more fuel to feed the flames, the firefighters could at last gain the upper hand. By taking a methodical approach, they were gradually able to suppress the remaining fire, making sure they left no hotspots that could potentially reignite. By the time the clock struck midnight, the immediate danger had passed. The smoking hulk of the B-52 sat on the tarmac, its charred wing a reminder of just how close the United States had come to catastrophe. The nuclear weapons, still secure in their mounts, had escaped the flames by mere chance in the arbitrary direction of the wind on a September night in North Dakota. Aftermath and cover-up. As dawn broke over Grand Forks Air Force Base on September 16th, few residents of the surrounding communities had any idea how close they had come to witnessing one of the worst nuclear disasters in history. In the days that followed, the Air Force moved quickly to control the narrative. The incident was reported to the public as a routine aircraft fire with minimal damage. There was no mention of nuclear weapons, no recognition of the looming catastrophe that had threatened the base, and certainly no acknowledgement that the safety of the entire region had hinged on wind direction. The official history of the 319th Bombardment Wing for the period simply noted, quote, "On the 15th of September, 1980, at approximately 2100 hours, the engine of a B-52H bomber stationed here at Grand Forks AFB caught fire. It ignited during an engine start." The bland, bureaucratic language betrayed nothing of what had truly been at stake that night. Among the personnel who witnessed the event, many would be left with a profound psychological impact. The security policeman who described the attempted escape by the KC-135 pilots was one of those most deeply affected by the incident. Years later, he would say, quote, "Every night I woke to the sounds and thoughts of that B-52 burning, the cement sizzling, and the fear of imminent explosions and radioactive dispersal." The Board of Veterans' Appeals eventually granted him PTSD benefits, acknowledging, quote, "It is clearly facially responsible to fear death when faced with an aircraft carrying nuclear weapons that catches fire." For most Americans, however, the Grand Forks incident quickly faded from memory, if they ever heard about it at all. It would take 8 years before the truth began to emerge. In 1988, the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense held a closed session in which Dr. Roger Batzel testified about the dangers of the weapons involved. With the accident at Chernobyl 2 years earlier demonstrating to the world the devastating potential of nuclear disasters, these revelations would force action at the highest levels. In May 1990, then Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney called an emergency meeting with Energy Secretary James Watkins, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Colin Powell, and various senior Air Force officials. The following year, the B-28 bombs that had been aboard the aircraft that night in Grand Forks were removed from active service, a direct result of the belated revelations about the incident and the design flaws that made them particularly vulnerable to accidental detonation during fires. Cheney also ordered all SRAMs removed from B-52s sitting on alert and relocated to secure storage. In 1991, with the breakup of the Soviet Union bringing the Cold War to its conclusion, President George H.W. Bush ended the policy of keeping bombers on alert status entirely. By 1992, the United States had begun removing these dangerous weapons from its nuclear stockpile. As nuclear arsenals age and geopolitical tensions fluctuate, the lessons of Grand Forks remain urgently relevant. The incident stands as a testament to both the enormous destructive potential of nuclear weapons and the sometimes terrifyingly arbitrary factors that can determine whether they remain safely controlled. In the cold calculations of nuclear deterrence, humanity counts on perfect engineering, perfect maintenance, and perfect decision-making. But on a September night in 1980, what ultimately protected the United States from unimaginable tragedy wasn't perfection. It was simply the direction of the wind. Thanks again to Delete Me for sponsoring our video. To safeguard yourself and your family from hidden online threats, go to the link in the description and use promo code DARKFOOTAGE for 20% off. Stay protected, stay private. Activate Delete Me today.